Okay, so this is what we're going to be making. Very, very simple little thing in Unity. It's just your first program, basically. It spawns these little balls inside of this square, and you can click on them, and they disappear. Right? Very, very basic. But that's the whole thing. So let's cover how to do that. All right, so let me drag this over to this window here. First thing you'll do is you'll open up your Unity hub, and then you go to projects, and we're going to create a new project. We're going to choose Universal 2D, and actually I want to put a different folder in here. My goodness. New folder. Okay, and perfect. And we're going to call this Popits lesson 1, and sure. Create project. You can call this whatever you like. Anyways, and that's that. And now it's going to build our it's going to build our project here. It's going to take a minute, so we just got to hang out while it does all the stuff it does. It can take a couple minutes to do this. Oh. My goodness. It doesn't normally take this long. I have a bunch of stuff open though, so that's part of the issue. Who knows? So anyway, we're gonna be making this thing, and we'll cover how to raycast, which is just how to like detect a mouse click. I mean, it's more than that, but that's basically it. We're gonna cover how to put an image on the screen, how to animate an image, how to position the image somewhere in the screen, and then how to automatically add an object to the game, like to add a thing or an item into the world you're playing in, and then how to remove it, how to destroy those objects. So as soon as this thing gets done, there we go. Okay. Oh my goodness, hurry up. Oh, okay. Well, the first thing you'll want to do is change your active input handling, because the new versions of Unity use their new input system, which is, I guess, fine. I don't think it's as good. Um, it's just, I don't know. I don't like it as much. So if you go to project settings and just up here, you just type in input, and then go to player. It should show up here under this active input handling right here. Change that and choose both. And then it'll use the old and the new, which is like, why the heck isn't that the default? It has to restart Unity. It won't take nearly as long this time because it's already created all the packages and everything. So it has to load it up, and then we'll get started. Beautiful. All right. So just to cover the Unity editor, here you have your like screen. This is where you'll put stuff so you can see what you're doing. In the game, there is a camera, and that's like what your screen sees. You'll see this is the same shape as my monitor, this little white box. This is what you're seeing on the screen. So if I were to put an image in there, actually here we'll put some we'll put some images in there. Actually, we'll put some content in here first, and then we'll cover all that stuff. So first thing we want to do is we've got to create a folder system. Staying organized is very important. Naming your variables, naming your folders, structure is so important because when you get to thousands of files, it gets overwhelming if you don't take good care of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our assets folder, and we're going to create a folder called resources. Now this is very important because the resources folder is just built into Unity. It just knows that that's where all your stuff is, and it will find all of your things in the resource folder. So everything we want Unity to be able to like pull from, like any assets, images, scripts, all that stuff, put it in the resources folder. We're going to create a new folder in here. We're going to call it scripts. That's where our scripts will go. And then we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call sprites. That's where your sprites will go. And by the way, I'm just right-clicking in this area down here to create these folders, choosing create the folder. And then the next one will be animations, like that. And then we'll do one more called prefabs. And we'll go over what those things are as we move through. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our sprites folder, and I will give you a couple files that you can use. But if you right-click this folder and choose Show in Explorer, it will bring it up in the Windows Explorer like this. So we can open that up and then copy and paste the two images we're going to be using right here in that folder. And if we open these up, it's going to be pretty basic. This is like our game background, dumb looking. AI generated it. It works great. That's like our little background. And then this is our little bubble that's going to pop. And you'll see that it has all these different images. And this is what's called a sprite sheet. And so what it does is it just flips between these pictures, kind of like a picture book. When you hit play, it'll play the first one here, and then it'll wait a certain amount of time. It can be as long as you want, and then it'll go to the next image, the next image, and the next image until they're all done. And so it works just like a flip book. It's an easy way to do animation without having to know how to do actual animation, so it's pretty cool. So, anyways, this is called a sprite sheet, and that's what that is. Those are our two images. So as you'll see now, this folder is lightened in color. That means we got stuff in there. And these other folders are empty, and so they're just all gray. And you can view the folders here on the side, or once you click on a folder, you can see the stuff inside that folder over here. So if I click on assets, it's going to show me all these things, and then show the folders and files and so on. So so let's drag our border. This is just an image here. We're just going to drag that onto the screen. And you'll see what it did was it created an object up here called border 0. And we're not going to actually do it this way when we add the objects, but this is just so you understand. So this is our main camera, okay? And you can set a lot of things with the camera, the size, the color, how bright it is, the background color, all kinds of stuff. The camera is basically the eyes in which you view the game. And so it's a very important feature, and the camera can move around, like you could attach it to an object like your main character, and you could attach it to their face and then move their face, turn their head, and then the camera will turn with them and it will look like they're looking, right? So the camera is really powerful. Use it a lot, but so with the camera, if you look over here down here, this is what the camera is viewing. And we only have one camera called main camera. You can have a lot of different cameras to switch angles, but we're just doing one main camera default thing. We're going to keep our light. We're just going to keep it all the same. And so we take our object and look at, if I drag it over here, you can see in the game, this is what you would see inside the game. The thing goes off the camera. So this little white box defines what we can see in the game. Okay. And so we're just going to put that in the middle. Let's just make it easy. Okay, beautiful. We're going to actually delete that because we're not going to use that object. I was just showing how that works. There's a bunch of other different controls. I just wouldn't worry about them too much for now. For our first lesson, the one thing you do note is if you left click and drag, you can highlight things. But if you middle click, like use your middle mouse, you can scroll in, or sorry, by scrolling your mouse wheel, and you can middle click and hold it down, and you can move this whole scene like this. And that's something that you'll use a lot. I use that quite a bit. Very handy. Over here you have the inspector. This thing gives you all the stuff about your objects, and that'll make more sense later. And down here, as we saw, this has all of your folders and files and stuff. The console is like the output. So you could put little messages in your code to say like when something happens, and it helps you with programming. And we'll cover a little bit of that later as well. Then you have the game up here. This is what you see in your game. Right now it's gray because there's nothing in here. But if I have a game, when you hit play at the top, it's going to flip to this game tab, and then you're going to see, the gameplay inside of this window. Um, so let's get started. Everything in the world has to be attached to an object. So we're going to go here. We're going to right click in our scene. This is called a scene. You see up here it says sample scene, and you can create a bunch of different scenes. So like maybe each scene is a different level in your game. You'd have a different scene or something like that. We're just gonna we can rename this if we want, or we can just leave it. That's fine. Also get in the habit of pushing Control S, Control plus S, Control plus A. So I'm going to say it again. It's so important. Save, save, save all the time. You can go up to File. You could choose Save, but just get in the habit. Control S after everything you do. Just save everything. Okay, so we're going to right click in our object menu here, and we're going to choose Create Empty, and it creates a new game object. We're going to call this box, whatever. Okay, and we can see over here, like with the main camera, when we click on the main camera and we look at our inspector, there's a lot of stuff in here, right? But when we click on box, it's just, there's nothing. It's empty. All it has is where it is in the game, the position it is in. And this is because we created an empty, which is just like a blank thing that we can do anything we want with. So we go to add component because we want to do something with this. And we're going to add a sprite renderer. So a sprite renderer is basically just a sprite is just an image. I mean, it's a little more than that, but it's just a picture. That's what a sprite is, and so you can attach a picture to this game object. And so we're going to attach this border down here picture to the game object. So right here we have some different options, but really all we care about is this little thing that says sprite. Right now it says none. We're going to click on this little circle here, this little target, and it's going to bring up all this stuff. Now, what you'll see is all these different pictures, okay? These pictures are in here because our images are in the resources folder. Anything inside the resources folder will automatically come up when you try and find a picture or do anything else. And it's not directly in the folder, it's in the sprites folder, but the sprites folder is in the resources folder. So it has to be underneath the resources folder. And you can actually have multiple resources folder and it'll read all of them, but anyway, so we're going to go here. We're going to choose border. And now look at that. We have our border, and it's on our new object we created called box. Pretty cool. And you can like flip it. You can like mirror. You can play with these settings. Honestly, you don't need to mess with them much. The big thing to note is that the order in layer is 0, and that's important because you have these different layers. There's just one layer right now. And so like maybe you have a background layer and you have like a player layer, like a medium layer, and then you have like a top layer. So anything that's in well actually we'll do this. We'll do another border. We'll do this. We'll just create it. We'll just copy this. Copy, paste. Okay. And so now we have box 1, box 2. And so if we set this to let's say we set this one to 2 and we set this one to 1. Okay. Now watch this. This one will go behind the other one because this one has a smaller number than this. But if we change this to a 0, all of a sudden this one comes in front because this number is bigger than that. So that's really important when you want to have like clouds in the background or buildings in the background or whatever in the background, right? You got to set your layers. So we're going to keep this because it's our background. We're just going to keep it at 0, and we're going to delete that one and have that. So the next thing we have to do is we have to set up our sprite map. And we click on our sprite, and what happened is Unity is pretty smart. When it imported this image, because we put it in this folder, it automatically breaks it up into all these different pictures. like the flipbook pages that it thinks you want. But this is way, way, way wrong. And so we have to fix this. And so the way we're going to do this is we're going to go to Open in Sprite Editor. Bink, like that. And you can see every one of these boxes it thinks is its own little flipbook image because it does its best to guess and see like there's like these little particles from when it explodes and it got all screwed up. So we're going to fix that. When I make my sprite maps, I just like to make everything the same exact size. So you can go here to this slice and you can go to, instead of automatic, we're going to choose by grid by cell count. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 cells wide and 1, 2 rows. So we have, or sorry, columns. We have C for columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 rows, 1, 2. So now when we hit this, we're going to choose slice, and we want to choose delete existing. So we're not creating new, right? We're just going to delete the other images that are already all janky. So choose slice, and now look at it. It puts the box around all the different places where we want the image to be. Perfect. And then once we've done that, we can choose apply up here. And now watch what happens to all these images down here when I hit apply. They all go away. And now we just have the 7 images we want to have, which is exactly right. So now we've set up our sprite map. So we have the correct number of images in our sprite. And the next thing we need to do is create an animation. And we need to create the little bubble that we pop. So we're going to make a new empty. We right click in the hierarchy object viewer, whatever, choose create. Oh, I went too fast. I'll delete that. I'll say that one more time. Create empty. Okay. And we're going to rename that. We're going to call this one Popit. That's our Popit that we click on. Okay, so now we have box, which is this, and Popit, which right now is blank. But guess what? We're going to add a sprite renderer to Popit. And then we're going to add our sprite, our image. We're going to click on the thingy, and remember, it finds all these images because they're in our resources folder. And now look, there's way, way less images now because we fixed our sprite map and it knows that these aren't a bunch of individual images. There's only 7. So we're going to choose pop 0, which is the first image that we have. Okay. And we can just double click it. And now it's there. But look, it's behind our box because the order and layer is set to 0. So let's set that to 1. And now our box is set to 0. Our ball is set to 1. So it's in front. And that's what we want. Perfect. So now, what do we do next? We need this thing to move. If we, well, actually, let's do this. We have our ball and we have our box. We're going to hit play, and let's see what our program does. That's it. That's all our program does. It's got a static box, a static ball. They don't do anything, but the game works. We're in the game tab up here. Okay, you can see that it's working. We go to console. There's no errors. If there was errors in the code, it would be like popping up, problem, problem, and in red. It runs fine. It just doesn't do very much. It's very simple. So what we're going to do now is we are going to animate our ball. And the way we do that is we go here to animations and we're going to, well, I'll tell you, there's kind of a cheater way you can do, actually. You can go here. You can create the animation manually, or you can just click on your sprite and you can just drag it up here. And then well, it should have. Oh, maybe I did that wrong. Let me delete that. No. There we go. Maybe drag it here. There we go. Drag it to the scene, and look at it. Automatically will create your animation files for you. It's kind of a cheaty way, but it works. And it's what I typically do because I don't have to mess with it. So we're going to call this pop. Pretty easy. And this is our. Oh, I got an alarm here. There we go. We're going to call this. Actually, we're going to call this pop, and save that. And then in our animations folder, we now have pop and we have pop 0. We didn't get to choose the name pop 0. This is actually the actual like animation clip that plays. And this is the thing that controls the animation clip. So we're going to call this pop AC. So I kind of developed, I kind of have a lot of different abbreviations I use when naming files. So AC means animation controller is the way I do it. You can do it however you like, but again, have names that you can recognize and know what they are. So we have pop. And if we look at our animation here and we scroll through this, oh, we got to click on this. Look at that. You can see it's going. So if we if we double click our animation, it will bring up this animation window, and you can move it around. So like it might pop up here. You can drag it up here. You could drag it over here. I like to keep it over on the left next to the inspector, because then you can see what it's doing. See that? So that's neat. And so here's your frames. So the frames are up here that it steps through. This is essentially the pages in your flipbook, and you can add these manually. But again, I'm just lazy. Like if we wanted to add more images to this, we could go to our sprites and we could add, this to that. We could add more of these. We could do like, you can add all these images, and now when you flip through it, it changes. See how it does that? In fact, you could hit the play button here or push spacebar, and it will go through all those things. So maybe we delete this one. Where was it? Where's the, oh, right there. We could delete this one. You could put any images you want, and you could space these apart. Like if I wanted it to be slower, let's say, let me delete this one as well. So this is all of our 7, right? Yeah. So if I wanted this to be slower, I could just highlight these, and I could drag this out. Oh, I did a bad. Here we go. Like that. And now you'll see all of them are farther apart. And now watch it go. It's slower now. And I can make it even slower if I want. See that? So you can control the speed of your animation. I honestly liked the speed it was before. They're about 1/10 of a second apart, and I think it works pretty well. So we're just going to leave that the way it was. Oh, we got to get this one. And call it good. Just like that. And now we watch it. I like the speed. You know what? Maybe I even go a little faster than that. Let's do, well, yeah, we'll just leave it like that. That's good. That's good. Perfect. Okay. That's our popping animation. Beautiful. In fact, we could, if we wanted to be a little faster, we could delete this first frame because the first frame is the same frame we're going to use for our still image. So we're going to delete that first frame. And you don't have to do any of this. Honestly, this is just showing you the different stuff you can do. So you can, anyways, there you go. So now we have an animation. Great. But we also need to have, if we were to play this right now, it's just going to be going mad the whole time, right? And that's not good. And also, this is our other ball that we drug in there just to create the animation. Remember, we drug this in there to create the animator files. We could just delete that. We don't need it. It's gone. Let's go back to our original ball. Go to the inspector, and now we're going to add a new component called animation, or an animator. And this is a runtime animation controller. We're going to select our animation controller, which is the Pop AC, Pop Animation Controller that remember we renamed. And now when the image is still, it's going to want to show Pop 0. That's where it starts on. But then as soon as we hit play, it's going to start playing this animation controller. And you'll see right here, it plays the animation controller like that. And pretty cool. And you can disable things. Like if I were to uncheck this box, it turns off the animation controller, and now you'll see that it doesn't do anything. Okay, pretty cool. So yeah, and I can uncheck the sprite renderer, and the animation, and it doesn't. You can see the sprite's gone because I disabled the sprite renderer. Now, if I turn on the animation controller and disable the sprite renderer, look. Let's see what happens. Nothing. Why? Because the sprite renderer is what tells the game to show an image. And the animation controller just swaps out the image in the sprite renderer to show the different images. And so that's why you have to have, if you're going to have an animator, you have to have a sprite renderer and an animator both together for it to work. So there you have it. Okay, so now the thing is we don't want it to just be like popping over and over and over again like a mad cow. Like that's not what we want. So let's fix that. We're going to go to our animation controller, and if you double click it, it's going to bring up your animator, okay, up here. And what this means, these are different states. So you can see the entry is where your animation starts, and then it's going to start and then immediately play pop, which is our animation that we created, remember, over here. It has all the different frames. And so it's going to pop as soon as it loads this this game object is just going to pop. So we don't want that. What we're going to do is we're going to make a new, we're going to right click down here under our animations folder. We're going to right click, we're going to go to create animation, animation clip. And we're going to call it pop stop. Why not? And we're going to drag it into our controller. Now, one thing about the pop stop that's weird is like if you try and add a sprite to this, it won't work. I don't know why. It seems like a stupid feature, but it will not let you add anything to this animation clip until the clip is inside of a controller. So you have to drag pop stop into your animator, and now you can edit and then you gotta click it. Is that right? Why is it? Oh, I gotta save it? What's going on? Why is it not working? Scene. There we go. And then that's right, you have to highlight the game object that has the animation controller on it, and then you can put stuff over here. Really, really weird. I don't like it. I don't know why it's that way, but it is that way. So now, if we go back to our animation controller, we have pop stop. If we look at pop stop, we see pop stop has just one frame in it. Okay. And it's just this right here, not that. It's just the first frame of our other one, just the regular full circle. It's this image right here is the only image that's in the thing. And pop has the 7 images of it exploding. So we have pop stop, which is just the first image in our sprite map, and pop has all the images in our sprite map. And so then what we're going to do, we'll go back to our animator, and we're going to say that when it first enters into the animator, first loads it, instead of popping right away, we're going to pop stop first. Don't stay frozen on the first frame. So we're going to right click on this and choose set as layer default state. And now you can see it's going to go here. But how do we make it pop? Because right now it's just going to go pop stop, and if we play this now, it's just going to do nothing because it's stuck in that what's called an animator state of pop stop. So each one of these are what's called different states. And so then what we'll do is we'll create a transition that allows us to switch between pop stop and pop. And maybe you have, so what transitions are is like maybe you have a guy and the default state is he's standing there and he's kind of like, moving a little bit like they do in video games when they're standing there. But then you press the W key on your keyboard and he walks forward. Okay, well you'd have a transition to another state. Instead of pop, it might be walk forward. And it will then switch to the walking animation while you're holding W. And then when you let go of W, it switches back to the standing still state. And so you have all these different states of animations and each one of these states is tied to a different animation file that we create so that you can show different animations based on things you do in the game. So we're going to go right click, make transition, and we clicked on the pop stop, make transition, and now we're going to tie it to pop. So now we can go from pop stop, which means it's not doing anything, to pop. And pop has our pop has our the full, what is it right here? All the different frames in it. So, it's the popping animation. And then we got to figure out, well, why is it going to transition? If I were to play this right now, it's going to just pop, right? It's going to display pop stop and then immediately go into pop because we don't have anything telling it not to go until we do something. It's just saying play pop stop and then immediately go to pop. So we're going to click on this transition, this little arrow here, go to our inspector, and we're going to turn off has exit time. We can just cover that later, but you don't need it. And then we're going to go up here to our parameters. Okay, not layers. We're going to choose parameters. And we're going to click the plus and go trigger. And we're going to call this pop. So now there's a code we can type in when we're writing our programming code that says to trigger the pop. And so we'll go to our transition now. And under conditions, we're going to hit this plus, and we only have one parameter, so it fills in there automatically. But if we could have multiple, like maybe you have push W, push S, push D, right? All these different triggers, and then you can assign those triggers to the transition that then transitions to the other animation you want. So we're going to choose pop. There we go, and then we're done. That's it. Control S, save that thing. Go back to our scene, and now when we hit play, it's not going to pop. Shouldn't. There you go. But now how do we make it pop? Well, now's where we get to the coding. Okay, so we've made our Popit images in this. We need one more thing on our Popit because we're going to be clicking it with a mouse, and we have to be able to detect if we hit the ball or the Popit. So we're going to choose Add Component, and it's called a Collider. Okay, and it's a Collider 2D because we're making a 2D game. And they have all different shapes of colliders. We're going to choose a circle because we have a circle object. This is basically, in a video game, we call it your hitbox. This is your hitbox, okay? And so when something hits your hitbox, it triggers an event. And we can set the sizes of it. Now, I should have gone through that. So if you click, let's say your hitbox is really big like this. Okay, so if we were to click right here, it would still trigger a hit event, even though we're not clicking on the actual picture, and that would be dumb. So we want to make sure that the hitbox, the collider, matches the shape of our object. So the way we do that is we click on our game object, and then under the Circle Collider 2D, they have this little Edit Collider with little dots and lines. We click on that, and then it brings up these little grabbies on the collider, and we can just click those, and we can resize them to where we think is about fair, and go with that. So now it's resized. So now we have our collider, which will check to see if things hit our object. We have our animator controller or animator and our sprite renderer. That's all we need. So now we have our empty, but the problem is we got to generate this, or not our empty, our game object. We have to generate this game object a bunch of different times. So we're going to make a way to just copy it. And the way we do that is by turning it into what's called a prefab. And a prefab basically just says, I want to just make one of these things and save it so that we could just keep putting it into the game. And it's really easy to make a prefab. You just set up your object the way you like it, and you drag it down here into your prefabs folder. So I clicked on prefabs and I just drug it down there. And now I can delete that. It's out of my game here. I can right click, I can choose delete, and it stays down here in my folder as like its own little saved object. If I want to edit this later, like there's something I want to change about it, I can just double click it. I can edit it, and I can hit this little back arrow, and then now my prefab will be changed for all the times I, what's called instantiate it or put it into the game. So there we go. Let's get into our scripts. So now we have some scripts to put in here. We're going to, wait 1 second here. Yeah. TPS report. Here we go. Scripts. Okay. So we're going to create. We're going to go to our scripts folder. We're going to right click in this area here. Create. Scripting. Mono behavior script. You know, I mean, you'll use all these scripts, but for now, just don't worry about it. Just do mono behavior script for almost everything. And we're going to create a script called spawn Popits. And we're going to double click that to open up the script. And it's loading on my other monitor. I'll drag it over in a second. Okay, so this is where you start when you create a new script. And you can see it's called spawn Popits. It's this is the name of the script. It's a mono behavior script. You have start and update are the default functions. So basically, whatever you put in the start is going to happen when it first loads the object, and whatever's in the update is going to happen every frame. So like if your game's running at 60 frames per second, it'll update 60 times a second. It'll do this. And so yeah, that's basically that. So let's make our thing. So we're gonna just get rid of all this stuff here. I don't need these comments in there. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to make a script that's going to spawn these poppets inside of this box is the goal. We want it to spawn inside of here. So um, we need to figure out the dimensions of this box. Now you can do that a lot of different ways. Honestly, the easiest way I think is to just add a collider to the box. So you can click on the box or click on the box here, go to your inspector, choose add component and make it a box collider 2D. Okay, and now there's a collider. You can see it's right around the edges of the sprite, but we're going to make it a little smaller so that the bubbles don't appear way over here. We're going to click this little edit geometry and we're going to drag it in a little ways about like that. Um, and the reason why is that um, I'm going inside the box is if we look at these sprites and we actually let me do this, open in sprite editor. So you see this little circle here? This is the the center of the object. And so if our if our collider went clear to the edge, then that means this circle could spawn at the edge and then your bubble's going to go way out here, you know? And so we're going to bring it in so that way the bubble will be like the farthest our bubble can be is like over here because if it spawns right at the edge because our the position, the anchor point is what this is called, is in the middle, or the pivot point is in the middle, it won't overlap our edges. So that's why, um, yeah, discard that. That's why on our box collider we're making it inside the circle like that. So or inside the square instead of having it right at the edges like you might think you'd want to do is put it here. We're going to make it a little bit smaller so that it fits our bubble better, our poppet better. So now that we have that collider, we need to detect the size of the collider. Just like, what do you need, Gideon?
So, am I allowed to play with the rocks?
Oh, yeah, you can do that. All right, so what we got to do is we're gonna we gotta we have to find this box in our code because we're gonna have a script and it has to know well what box are we trying to look at. So we're gonna say public. That just means that other parts of the program outside of this script can read this. It's a public game object, and we're going to call it go box. Bam. So we're saying that we're going to create a variable called go box. It's going to be a game object. That's all we're saying so far to the script. And then we're going to create another game object called go popit. Okay, so our box and our popit. Pretty easy. Then we're going to say public float let's see, min spawn interval equals 1f, or you can say 1.0f. That means that it's 1 second. And we'll say 3 seconds, whatever, max spawn interval. So what we've done is we're gonna spawn these little poppets at a random amount of time, somewhere between 1 and 3 seconds. Pretty easy. Okay, and then we're gonna create some other variables. We're going to create a box collider, the CD 2D, and that's just again terminology I use. This means box collider 2D, and that's just anytime it's something that starts with BC2D, that's what I do. And I might even say box collider box like that, BC2D box, and then we're gonna private. Oh, let's see here. Spawn timer. There we go. So something else you'll notice is that my variables all begin with lowercase letters, but my classes all begin with capital letters, and that's relevant because you could have you know what, that's way too advanced. Never mind. Just start your variables with with lowercase letters. There you go. That's way. All right. So and then we're going to say okay. So now we have these things. We have a variable for go box, a game object, a game object here called go pop it. And then an easy, cheap way, I don't usually like to do it this way. I like to add them inside of the code, but a simple way you can add them to, to say, well, which box, which game object is this? You can do it through the editor here. So if I click on box, and I go to scripts, I have my spawn Popits script. Well, we need to attach this. Actually, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do this. We're gonna make a new create empty, and we're gonna say game controller. This is typically what I do. So we're gonna have a game controller. This is kind of all the things that control the game. Maybe it's, I don't know. It could be all kinds of things. When the clouds spawn, when the enemies move, I don't know, whatever. So, and we're going to attach spawn poppets to our game controller. And that's really easy to do. We just drag it up here like that. Pink. Oh, nope, that's not what I wanted. Why did that happen? I missed. There we go. And so now when we click on game controller, you'll see that spawn poppets is over here. So remember, before the game controller is an empty, so it doesn't have anything in there. But if we drag spawn poppets up to game controller, it now has our script here. And what you'll see is, because these are public, only if you put public in front of those, private variables don't show up in here. But because we have public in front of the variable, you could leave this blank and it will be private by default, honestly. But anyways, then it shows up in here. And so now I could say, well, what's my box? Okay, I could just take my box, right? And I can, oh, I can drag it over here and say, that's my box. And then I can say, well, what's my poppet? I can go to my prefabs folder and say, that's my poppet. So now it knows what box we're talking about and what poppet we're talking about. And my minimum spawn and my maximum spawn, I could change this to 5 or 3 or whatever I want to do easily without having to edit my code now, because those are public variables and visible to the editor. So, all right, there we go. So now we have to say, first we're going to do is we're going to try and work with this box. But if the box somehow doesn't exist, it's going to throw an error. It's going to break the game. It'll crash. This is what causes like game crashes and stuff. So first we're going to do is we're going to say if the go box is null, or the go poppet is null. So that means like they don't exist for whatever reason. We're going to debug .log missing an object, whatever, good enough. And then we're going to say return. And what return does is it just exits the game. It exits the script. It just says, hey, don't do anything else. Just, it's broken. Move on. Do something else. Quit. And so we're going to quit this script if either of those are missing. So this little thing, the two pipes, that is right above your enter key on your keyboard. You hold shift and you push it, and you push the little. It's like a slash in a vertical line. You have to hold shift when you hit it. That means or in C#. So you just got to know that. Just got to know. In other languages like Visual Basic, it'll be or like this, but that just means or. So if this is null, which means doesn't exist, or this is null, which means doesn't exist, then just tell us that we're missing an object and return. So something else we can do is we're going to do this debug.log. This is a debug. Warning.log. This is a warning. So we're going to go ahead and run this. By the way, all of your lines in C#. Why isn't that? I thought you could. Anyways, I thought you could do a warning log in this. It's oh well, doesn't matter. So all of your lines have to end with a semicolon, which is found right above the question mark and left and just to the side of the L key on your keyboard. You'll see they all have these lines. This doesn't have one because this curly bracket actually we're going to write it like this. I don't know if it'll let us because it tries to format things for us. But essentially this is saying like if open parenthesis if these conditions happen, and then it closes the conditions, then do whatever is inside of these little brackets. Okay, so if go box is null or go poppet is null, then do what's inside here, which means log that there's a missing object and exit the program. And I'll show you what logging looks like. Let me switch back to Unity here. We're going to go ahead and import our assets. We're going to run, and I just have a thing. You see, when this thing first loads, it's gonna just say this is a debug. So if I go to console, you'll see right here it says this is a debug. So you can write stuff to yourself and read it in as the game is running, and that'll be relevant here in a little bit. We'll cover that, but all right, but that's what the log is. So it'll tell us like, hey, something's missing, and it helps us know what's wrong with the game when it doesn't work right. Okay, so then BCD2. So then we have this BCD2, but right now this is null because it doesn't. It's just, see how it's gray like that? It's like, yeah, you said you have a box collider, but you didn't tell us anything about it. It's just it's a null value. It's not initialized, is what you would say. It's uninitialized, which means you've told me that you have one, but it doesn't have a value. Like if I were to say, you know, int number equals 0. So now I have an integer, which is a number, and that number equals 0. But if I go like this, I made a number, but it doesn't equal anything. It just doesn't even equal 0. It just equals nothing. That's null. It's nothing. So that's what null means. So we're going to go, so we have to tell it what our BC2D box is. And we'll just do that to make it easier. So anytime you type game object, lowercase g game object, in a script, it means the game object. Oh, wait. That this is, actually, that's a lie. I don't need that. I forgot that I attached this to the game controller. So we're going to say go box get component. Yep, there we go. So our BCD2 box, which is our box collider, which we're referencing the box collider here that we made, this little green circle, we're referencing that, is attached to our box, right? So what we're saying is this box collider box, I want you to look at the Go box, the box, and get the component called that is a box collider 2D. So that's going to get that box collider. Bring it here again. And so, as always, we're going to just give it to me. I know. I just give it. Yeah, I see that. There you go. All right, so then we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to check if it's null, because if for some reason there is no box collider on that object, it'll break the game. And so we're going to say, we're just going to copy that, missing box collider on our box, okay? So we'll know what's going on if something breaks. Very important stuff to do that. Okay, and then we have, and that's basically that. So we're assigning our variables. We're saying, we're checking to see if these have a value. Then we're telling it where our box collider is, and that's that. Now, the reason why we put these up here is because if I created a variable inside of just the start function, it would only be able to be accessed from within start. But if I put it outside of a function, then all of the functions in this page all the functions anywhere, can read that variable. And so that's why it's important these are up here and not inside of our start function. So then we got to create some other routines. So we need to spawn our objects. That's not what I want. Spawn object. Actually, we'll say spawn Popit. Okay. Oh, I forgot to put a void in front of this. So void. And we can cover void and stuff. Just put void in front. Don't worry about why it's there at this point. It has to do with how it returns value from the function. So just put void. And then you can give this any name you want. You can call it Mushu Rider. You can call it Pizza Hut. It doesn't matter. We're calling it spawn Popit because whenever we run this little bit of code, it's going to spawn a Popit. That's it. So the other thing we have to do is, how are we going to do this? Here we go. We're also going to create another routine called void set next spawn time. Okay. And we're going to create another one called vector3 get random position within within collider. Beautiful. And you know there's a red line under there. That means there's an error with the code, and that's just because we have to return something. And so we'll just return null. Oh, you can't return. Doesn't matter. Just ignore the red line for now. So, all right. So let's fill this out. So we have to get the size of our game object of our box collider. So vector 2. By the way, a vector 3 means that you have x, y, and z coordinates. A vector 2 just means x and y. So it's just like a square as opposed to a cube. And so this represents, vector 2 represents a square object. So it's going to tell you the top left position, the top left corner's position, and the bottom right corner's position of the square. So we're going to call this our size equals bcd2box dot size. And then we're going to get another vector 2. We'll call this offset. This is basically how far it is from the top left of the object it's within. And then we have a vector 3, and then we're going to get the middle of the object. There we go. Oh, I put a... There we go. So that's how you do it. The transform is basically just is kind of like the game object, and then this is where it is in the world of the game. So that's that. So we got all the different positions of the game object, and then float x equals, we're going to make a random number within that. Range dot x. So we take the center minus the width divided in half, x plus the size divided by 2. There we go. And then we're going to do this with y. Oopsies. And then we're just going to get the z position of our box, which should be 0 because we're in a 2D environment, but we're just getting it anyway because to instantiate, to add a game object into our game, into our world, you have to have all 3 x, y, and z coordinates. But we're not going to really use the z; it's just going to be 0 because it's a 2D game. So there we go. Now what this does is this gets a random position within our box. So it randomly generates a number, a location anywhere in here. So we've done that, and now we need to spawn our object. Vector 3. Let's see, spawn position equals this. Bink. So anytime I write this down, this is actually going to equal the value that it returns. So it's going to equal an XYZ coordinate in the world somewhere randomly. It's going to just return that. It's going to, so this actually equals some random XYZ position within the box. All right. And then we got to instantiate go. No, what is it? Yeah, go Popit. So spawn position quaternion. I always forget how to spell this. Q. There we go. So there you go. So now we're going to instantiate, which means add it to the world. We're going to add this item at this location, and it just represents like how it's rotated. It's just going to be straight up and down is what that means. And then yeah, then we have to set our. So right now, if we were to call spawn poppit, in fact, here we'll do this. We'll just call spawn poppit. So right now, it's going to do all these things, and then when it runs, it's going to do these, and then it's going to run the spawn poppit function, okay, which is down here. And the spawn poppit function calls this function, so it loops through these different functions. But when we run this, it should spawn a poppit somewhere randomly our in our box. And let's see if that works. And there it did, right there. It put a poppit at a random location in our box. And if we stop and start again, it'll be somewhere different. There it is. Perfect. So spawn poppit works. But now we want to keep spawning them, don't we? And so we're going to use our set next spawn time. So let's see, set next spawn timer equals 0f. So we set our timer to 0. And then next spawn time equals random dot range min spawn interval max spawn interval go. Yep, bang bang bang. Yep. All right. And so now what we've done is we have we're going to copy and paste that. So we're going to spawn a poppit, and then we're going to set the next time a poppit should spawn. Okay? And so the next poppit is going to spawn at somewhere, so we're going to say next spawn timer. Wait 1 second. What am I thinking? I'm thinking craziness. Yeah, it's going to be between 1 and 3 seconds. This generates a random number between 1 and 3 seconds. Hang on 1 second. Hang on just 1 second. All right, sorry, I'm back. Yeah, so, and then in our, you'll see spawn timer up here is equal to, oh, well, I guess we could do this. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. So first thing we do is we set our spawn timer to 0. Okay, and then we set our next spawn time to somewhere between 1 and 3 seconds. And by the way, a float is just a number that has a decimal. So it's like it can be less than 1. It can be like 1 1/4, whereas a regular number is just 1, 2, 3, 4. So it could spawn at 1 1/4 seconds, and that's why we use a float instead of an integer. Update. Yeah, so then we're going to do spawn timer equals spawn. We can do plus equals like this, but I'm going to make this easier for you to understand. We're going to go spawn timer plus time delta time. So what we've done is the delta time is the amount of time that passed since the last time this update ran. So maybe it was a tenth of a second. Okay, it was less than that, but let's just say it was. So it's going to add a teeny tiny bit to this number, like a fraction of a second to this, every time this update runs, because this update runs like 100 times a second, and so it's going to add 100th of a second to this spawn timer variable, because that's what our time delta time is. This is just the time that has passed since the last time your update has run, and the update just keeps running over and over and over again super fast. So what we're going to say is if, oh, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Look at this, it's genius. Yep, so if the next spawn time is greater than the spawn timer, oh no, that's not what we want. We want it to be the opposite of this. It didn't know quite what I wanted. There you go. If the spawn timer, because this just keeps, so this is going to start at 0. As soon as we call this function, it's going to set that to 0. And then it's going to pick a random number between 1 and 3. And so this is going to keep adding just a teeny tiny bit to this number over and over and over again. And once this number gets as big or bigger than this number, it's going to do this thing. So when this number, the spawn timer, gets bigger than the next spawn timer, which is between 1 and 3 seconds, it's going to do this thing. It's going to spawn Poppit. We're gonna spawn the Poppit, and then we're gonna set a new next spawn time, and that resets our timer back to 0, picks a new timer between 1 and 3 seconds in the future, and waits, and then once it gets to that timer, it'll spawn another Poppit, and then reset the timer. And that's what's going on here. So let's see if it does that. Let's see if it does that. Okay, save. Where's our, there we go. Oh, wrong thing. Bam. Okay, let's hit play and see if it spawns our Poppits. Look at that. Pretty fancy. Okay, so now we can spawn the Poppits, but guess what? They don't do anything. You can't make them pop. So the last phase is to make them pop. Let's make the Poppits pop. Okay. We're done in spawn Poppits. Let's go back to our Unity program. Now we're going to go to scripts down here on our assets, resources, scripts. We're going to make a new scripting mono behavior script. So create scripting mono behavior script. We're going to call it pop. Easy peasy. Well, you know what? Yeah, it's fine. We'll actually call it Popit because if we want to do something later, yep. So we'll call it Popit, and then we're going to double click that to open it up in our editor. Okay, and in here we are going to do some other stuff. So first thing we have to do is we need to check if we clicked the mouse, and so we're going to do on update. Every time it updates, which remember is like 100 times a second, we're going to check and see if we clicked the mouse at all. So if input dot get mouse, get mouse button down. So if the mouse button is held down during this frame, we're going to do this thing. We're going to do this. Debug.log mouse is down. Okay. So now we can check and see if this is working because we're going to debug log that. So let's go back to our thingy. And, oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. What the heck? Why won't it pull up? There it goes. Save that, Control R that. And so now we, what was I doing? Oh yeah, we'll go to our console. We'll hit play. And nothing happens. Oh crap, why does nothing happen? Because we should see mouse clicked. Well, it's because we created our script, but we didn't attach it to anything. Like there's nothing, it needs to be attached to the game controller or something, right? But we are going to attach it to our Poppit because we want to have a separate script for each Poppit that runs so it can do its own thing. Like everything is has its own little brain. Each Poppit has its own little brain that thinks for itself and it can take care of itself. So we're going to go to our prefabs. We're going to double click Poppit and we're going to open up our Poppit. This is just, you can see it's just the Poppit on there now. We're just editing that. We have all of our stuff we made, sprite render, etc. We're going to go to scripts and we're going to drag our Poppit script up to our Poppit. And now, if you click on Poppits, you'll see down here, it has our script attached. If we remove the script, it looks like this. It's not there. We can drag it back up and it puts the script back. So now our script is going to run every time this Poppit pops into the game. It's going to run this script. It's going to do this thing. So now let's see what happens. Look at that. Mouse is down. Now it says it twice. Now it says it 3 times. And so it will say mouse is down the number of times that we have Poppits on the screen. Do you see that? Because I'll go over that again. So each Poppit is running. So if there's 1 Poppit and I click this, it's only going to show 1 time. If there's 2 Poppits, it's going to show twice. If there's 3 Poppits, it's going to show 3 times because each Poppit is running the script for itself. So every time I click the mouse, each Poppit that's out there is going to say, the mouse is down. And yeah, that's that. So we know that the get mouse button down works. But now how do we know if we click the Poppit? Because we got to check to see if we clicked the Poppit, right? So we have to do what's called ray casting, and ray casting is basically like sending an imaginary laser into the game. Like if you had a 3D world and you say, okay, did my bullet hit this thing, or is something within my line of sight, or did the mouse click something? It has to like send like an imaginary laser and do all the math to figure out if that mouse was traveling through space straight into the camera, would it have hit that thing? That's ray casting. So the first thing we have to do is we have to get the mouse position. Okay, and that's a vector 2 because we're in a 2D world. If it was, well, it always is. It's always vector 2 because the mouse is on your screen. You know, the mouse only moves in 2D. It doesn't go, further away from you. So it's a 2D. We'll call this mouse POS, sure, equals camera dot main dot screen to world point input dot mouse position. There we go. So we're going to check the main camera, which over here is our main camera. And there's a setting that you choose to choose if it's the camera.main, but it's our main camera. Okay, main camera. And it's going to choose a screen to world point. So basically that means like your monitor on your computer, when you clicked on the screen, where was that in the actual 3D world of your game? And it's basing it on your mouse's cursor position. So then we have to check if it hit anything. So raycast hit 2D, because we're in a 2D world. We'll call it hit equals physics 2D dot raycast the mouse POS from up here, right? We're going to raycast our mouse position with a just a vector 2 0 because there's not 3D. We're not in a 3D world, and so yep. So there we go. So we're going to check the mouse position and just see if it hit anything. Okay, and so let's do this actually. If we're going to do a little test here so you can see how it works. If hit, because that's what we called our raycast 2D, right? We can call this whatever we want. We can call this tacos. It doesn't matter. We're just making a thing that is this is an object. It's called raycast. It's a class actually. We're making a thing that is a raycast 2D and we're calling it hit. It'd be like saying I have a dog named Larry. Well, raycast is the type of thing that it is, and we're just giving it a random name. We can call everyone. We're calling it hit. So if it hit a collider, okay, is not null. So if it hit a collider, if the thing that it hit is not null, right? It's checking to see if it hit a collider. If it's not empty, which means it did in fact hit a collider. And remember, the colliders are those little like these little boxes we put on stuff, right? Which we put the round one on the Poppit. It's the hit box. If it hit a hit box, then do this thing. Debug.log you hit me. Else, oops. Miss. Okay. So if we hit something, then we're going to choose you hit me. Otherwise, miss. Okay. And remember, in an if statement, it checks to see if whatever is between these parentheses is true. And if it's true, then it does whatever is between the curly brackets. And you can put an else in there that says, and if this isn't true, then do this instead. Now, this is actually going to say you hit me all the time. And the reason why is because we have a collider on our box. You see that? So the raycasting checks if it hits any collider anywhere in the whole game. And so if I click over here, miss, 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 but if I click here, miss, miss, but if I click where that collider was on our box, it's going to say you hit me. And if I click on the ball, it's also going to say you hit me because they all have colliders on them. So we have to tell it. Now we have to specify like, well, which collider should you have hit, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to say if the collider is not null and hit collider dot game object equals this dot game object, then do this, and we're going to get rid of this. So, oh, I want two of these. So you always do, when you're checking to see if something's equals, you just always do 2 equals. That's how it works. This means not equal to, by the way. I should have said that a long time ago. This equals not equal to, this equals, this equals and. So the way this works is it will check this one first. If this is true, then it'll move on to the next one. Okay, that's why we do the 2 ands. There's also a 3 ands that you can do, but don't worry about that. And so it has to go in this order. Because first it'll check if it's null. If it's not null, then it'll check this and say, hey, is the collider that it hit this game object? The game object that this Popit script is attached to? Because remember, we attached the Popit script here to our Popit. So we're checking to see if when you click it, it was this object, not some other object. And let's see how that works now. It should work a lot better. You hit me, and I click over here, nothing happens, right? But if I click one of the balls, you hit me, you hit me. Okay, so now we've checked to see if our game object goes. Perfect. So now we need to play the animation when we hit, okay? So we'll say, what would it be? Game object, here we go. Ba, 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 ba. Game object. So the game, anytime you put game object like that, it just means like the game object the script is attached to. Um, so this will be like the Popit that you clicked, because that's what the script is attached to. Game object get, oops. So we have to get the animator component because it has if you remember when we go back to our animators, remember this little trigger we set up with the pop for this transition? We have to get this animator. It has to know that we're talking about the Popit game object, which is game object, and has to know that we're talking about the animator attached to that game object. So we're going to get that animator, and we do that by doing this. Set trigger pop. So we have this trigger. Oh, we gotta wait for it to finish rewriting. We have this trigger we created called pop, and whenever this is triggered, it's gonna run this. It's gonna transition. It's gonna move to this animation. And so that's what we're gonna do. If we click the object, it's gonna pop. Okay. So let's go back to our game, and let's hit play. See what happens. Pop. Oh my gosh, look at that. It just keeps going though. And look they're not disappearing. They're popping up over here. You can see we're getting new objects, but they're not going away. They're just staying there forever. So that's not good. How do we fix that? Okay, well, we have to check and see what state it's in and then destroy the object. So the way we do that, first off, one thing you can do to help with that is you can go here. We can go to a project, go to our animations, and if we go to pop and see it says loop time, that means that it'll just keep looping over and over again. So I could turn that off and then hit play. And now watch. It's just going to play the animation one time and then stop. But see, it's frozen at the last frame of the animation because it just stops. And the objects, the Popits are still over here in memory. They haven't actually disappeared. And so we want them to actually disappear. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make a little variable that says is popping. Okay. Yep, is popping equals false because it's not popping to start with. Oh, we got to say bool. Yep, there we go. And then every time that it updates, right, we're going to put this outside of our if statement because this is our if statement, the ending curly bracket. We're going to put outside of that if is popping, then do this thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to say is popping is true. So is popping means is false. It's not popping. The bubble isn't popping. But once we click the mouse button and the mouse button hit our collider on our Popit, it's going to trigger the new animation and it's going to set is popping to true so that the game knows that it's popping. And then while it's popping, it's going to check 100 times a second. Every time it updates, it's going to check to see whatever we put in the is popping section. By the way, you could say equals true like this. So if is popping equals true. But because it's a, we'll just leave it like that for now. Yep. If is popping equals true, not false, then do this. And so we're going to say animator, we're going to get the animator state info. Okay. My goodness. Yep. We'll just call it state, whatever, equals. Oh, yeah, we have to get the animator, don't we? My goodness. Ah! This is annoying. Okay. Oh, freak. Because I'm an idiot. This needs to go in there. I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid. Animator. My animator. Think. That looks better, doesn't it? Okay, so we've created a variable called myAnimator, and when we start, we're just going to get that component. And the reason why is it takes a little bit of memory and a little processing time to go out and find that component. So we're just going to like find it one time and then just remember where it is. And so then we can just use this variable and it just knows right where the component is. It doesn't have to look it up every time because we don't want to have to look up that component 100 times a second, right? We just look it up when the thing loads and then it just knows where it is. So there we go. My animator. Bang, 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 bang. That's what we want. What are we doing? Freak, what was I doing? I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, there we go. Get current. Get current animation state info. Like that. And then we're going to say if the state is name, so it's checking the name is pop, and state.normalize time is greater than or equal to 1f, destroy game object. Okay, so what does this mean? So if we go back to our animator, you see it says, so first we're getting the state of the animator. Like, hey, what's the state of it? It means like these are called states. So is it in the pop stop state or is it in the pop state? That's what we got to know. Is it stopped or is it popping? And so we're going to say, we're going to get the state, and then we're going to say if the name of the state is pop, which it should be if it's popping, right? And the normalized time is greater than 1. So 1 just means it's completed the animation. It starts at 0 and then just know if it says 1, it means the animation's over. It means that it took the amount of time, even if the animation is 25 seconds or a minute or 3 seconds, it doesn't matter. When the normalized time equals 1, it means that it played the entire animation. And if it played the entire animation, then destroy the game object. That's it. That's what's going on. So now let's go back here, go to our scene. Let's see what happens now when we push play. We see the Poppet over here, and it's gone. Oh, look at that. They're actually deleting themselves. See that? When we click them, they go away. Pretty cool. And that's it. That's what we got so far. So you've made your first basic game in Unity. And that's pretty cool. So there you have it. Have fun with that.